Lane Kiffin is a snake. Or is he? Because that might have just been a clickbait title. But yes, of all the college football carousel, because Ole Miss only one loss, one of their better seasons, if not their best season, he decides he's going to dip and go to LSU next year, where his contract's going to be 7 years and worth $91 million, $13 million a year. But the kicker was Lane Kiffin thought he was just going to coach in the playoffs. Be like, I'm still going to write it out with my boys, right? They want me there. And Ole Miss said, get the hell out. You really think we want you coaching us after you stabbed us in the back for LSU? No. Now, Quinn, I will say this. You're not as obviously into college football as me. Lane Kiffin was around a lot longer than you and I when he was a coach. He's been coaching since the 90s. But this man, he has a bit of a reputation. He has a bit of a reputation for leaving teams or leaving programs in ugly exits. He was actually an NFL head coach of the Oakland Raiders back when, remember this guy, Jamarcus Russell, was their quarterback? Yeah, that was very well. But what really started everything was the University of Tennessee, where he coached a year and decided to leave, kind of did similar what he did for LSU. He decided to leave Tennessee and stab them in the back to take more money at USC for 3 years. And then Florida Atlantic left pretty ugly there. He didn't have the friendliest of exits. And then he's been in Ole Miss since COVID, and now he does this. I think there was an infamous moment when he got fired by the Raiders where Al Davis, their former owner that passed away, like had a whole, I think, like slideshow presentation about like how bad of a coach he was and everything. Like, I'm not kidding. That actually happened. People have been talking about it. And I think that's just proof. That's proof in the pudding right there that, yes, what Lane Kiffin did was a bit of a snake-like move to leave your boys in probably their best season in program history, just coming off the playoffs, and just thinking that you're going to just coach them anyway when you take the money and say, see you later. But Ole Miss should have kind of known this too, because he's done this in the past. I don't think this is mainly a Lane Kiffin issue because people are going to take the money. Nick Saban's done that before in the past. Other coaches have done it. This is an NCAA problem. This is a college football problem. And if we are going to criticize players for taking NIL money, then we have every right to act like this with coaches. But guess what? Both the coaches and players have rights to do that. Fortunately or unfortunately, whatever your opinion is. So again, just kind of like in terms of morale, not a good move, but he's allowed to do it. This is on NCAA, in my opinion, for letting this stuff happen. Quinn, what's your thoughts about this?
So I think there's three very interesting points with this. First, and I'll preface this by saying I've never heard of this man in my life before,
Hmm.
but
Shock.
clearly he's not that bad of a head coach if he keeps getting jobs. I mean, obviously he's at the NFL. He's not NFL caliber. And I mean, Jamarcus Russell was a big mistake. I'm not sure if Lane Given drafted him himself or if he was the one pounding the table for him or anything like that. So, so maybe that's not his fault. But if he keeps getting hired and keeps getting contracts by different schools, I mean, LSU is a pretty good, successful, big program. And if they're giving him 91 million over what, 9 years, 13 million a year, that's interesting. The second thing I find interesting is that Old Miss is so offended by this. Because, like you said, did they not see this coming? I mean, when you hire a head coach like that, I mean, they also signed up for this kind of clown show, if you want to call it that, of this weird exit. So what were they expecting exactly from a coach who leaves teams for others? And like, I get there gets to a point where there's like company loyalty. That is very important, of course, too. But then, like you said, there's this whole college football with thing with players leaving for more money, and that happens at NFL too. So uh, it's interesting to see it kind of filter down to college and affect that dynamic. And then the final point that I thought was interesting is like, so he leaves, right? I think it's interesting that the whole news comes out before the college football playoffs. So LSU clearly really likes him, or somebody likes him, and they're saying we want him now. I don't know how contracts work. I don't know when his contract expires. At least contracts in college football world, but it seems like they really liked him, and maybe that's just how it works overall in football. I know Jonathan Gannon got a contract before the Super Bowl, but that was during the playoffs, and most team seasons are done by then. So but yeah, LSU clearly really likes him. And I mean, if Old Miss was like, oh, yeah, you're going to take a contract somewhere else, we're just going to get rid of you now before the playoffs, seems a little silly. I mean, there's this whole theory of everyone's emotional. We have our emotions, we're humans, right? But making the logical decision and like putting your emotions to the side. It feels like Old Miss is like, oh my god, I'm feeling all these emotions. No, I want this guy gone. Betrayal, and that kind of refers to what my first point of like your second point of did you not kind of expect this, have this in the back of your mind? But then like you got rid of your best chance of arguably your best chance of winning and going far in these playoffs. I mean, he's been there since 2020, right? Old Miss, from my limited college and football knowledge, hasn't been phenomenal or as good this year as they have been since he joined. But you think he's certainly a major part of their playoff contention. Um, so the fact that they'd be like, all right, you know what? We're just so offended, we're just going to get rid of him. Like not even keep him for the playoffs, not even be like, all right, you know what? We understand his business. You're getting offered a lot of money, great spot. They're just saying, no, we're just going to potentially shoot ourselves in the foot. We're losing him anyway. Now we're going to make it worse by getting rid of him earlier and just sacrificing their season, their players' season, everything. So it's a very interesting culmination of events here. A lot of offense and saltiness going around.
100%, 100%. But I just don't. I disagree in terms of like being like almost offended that Ole Miss is offended because when you have a season like this and then your coach just decides to take the money at this time, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense from his perspective. It makes a lot of sense from LSU's. It makes a lot of sense from Kiffin's in terms of course, you'll take the money. It's a bigger program. And LSU has to get these contracts in because when you have to get recruits in, not just through like the old school, like going to talk to parents and kids to get your players to play and needing a coach for that, but now the NIL portal, you need your coaches. But the timing's just really bad. It's really bad. And again, I just don't blame Ole Miss for kicking the curve. Why would you like how is he going to convince kids to go play for him at LSU? Like, oh yeah, I'm certainly going to commit to you. I'm not going to stab you in the back. I'm not going to leave you in the middle of the season to get more money. No, I'll stick with you through everything. If I'm a parent of an athlete, why would I trust him? I almost forgot to mention too. He was an offensive coordinator at Alabama for a little bit. Went back when Nick Saban was around. They had to fire him before the 2017 national championship game when they beat Clemson because he was too distracted thinking about his Florida Atlantic job, being the new coach there, and the offense looked flat. So, again, just a horrible reputation that Ole Miss should have known. I just think neither side's like there's no correct answer, just an ugly situation, that's all.